Well, I've been to 2 international conventions. The first one I went to was in Washington, and when I was there, I checked out the program, and I went to see there is a special section for accredited speakers, and this is where 5, 6, 7 Toastmasters come along, and they've been through a huge amount of work. An awful lot of effort has to go in to become an accredited speaker, and they finally get to this stage at the international convention, and they have 45 minutes in which to sell themselves to the judges. And it's not a competition. The judges decide who will be allowed to call themselves an accredited speaker. When I went back to Vancouver last year for the convention, I checked the program again, headed off for the accredited speakers again, and was delighted to see that one of our own Toastmasters in District 71 was one of these persons who was going forward to be considered for as an accredited speaker. And again, I sat mesmerized. It is fascinating to watch them. They are so good at what they do. And we were thrilled, the group of us from District 71. And I have to say, it did bring a little tear to my eye and give me that warm, fuzzy feeling inside when our very own Clare Crowther was awarded the title of being an accredited speaker. And it's remarkable because she is the first in District 71, and in fact, she is the first in Europe to be qualified as an accredited speaker. And she earned the award, as I said, in Vancouver on the 26th of August 2017. She is the CEO of Your New Horizon for over 24 years. Clare has worked as a change management consultant across the UK and Europe with FTSE 100 companies, large, medium and small enterprises, government departments and universities. Whilst deploying her expertise to manage major changes, Clare became increasingly interested in the way people respond during change. So when we offered her the workshop here, and she said, what would you like me to do the workshop on? And she sent me a list of about 10 things that she could do. We decided on change, because with the transition to pathways, we thought it was a good opportunity to explore change. So please welcome your presenter today, accredited speaker, Clare Crowther.
You are not alone. No matter what change is impacting you right now, whether it's cultural, political, technological, there is someone out there experiencing that same change. If it's personal, if it's multiple, if it's international, there is someone out there experiencing that self-same change. Of course, the impact on you and your particular response is absolutely unique to you. As Patricia has said, I've been working as a change management consultant across the UK and Europe with organisations and people of all shapes and sizes. And I've become increasingly interested in finding out what it is that makes people respond in different ways to these changes. I'll be sharing with you some stories, both public domain and personal perspective, as well as a touch of theory. First, we have an activity. Excitement! It's going to be timed and conducted in complete silence. Does everyone have a writing implement and something on which to write? Yay. Are we all ready? Please follow the instructions on the screen. And now would you please be upstanding while continuing to count and write on your piece of paper. Is everybody comfortable? Is everybody stood? And that's time up. Please stay standing. If you saw 1 or 2 Fs on that screen, please take a seat. If you saw 3 or 4, please take a seat. If you saw 5, please take a seat. For those still remaining who saw 6, please give them a big round of applause. That's a great round. Do you want to see them again? Okay, yes, thank you. I knew there'd be one. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah.
Very important.
So what was that activity about? Apart from obviously counting Fs,
Observation.
it's about observation, and it's about change and how you're carrying on doing a normal activity and something comes in to disturb you. Change often has interference, interruption and disturbance into your lives. Sometimes you get a little ripple of a change that kind of you recover from really, really quickly. Sometimes it's a tidal wave that hits you in the face. Sometimes it's a tsunami that totally engulfs you. The change is so bad, so overwhelming. It takes tremendous physical force to wade through that change. It takes extraordinary emotional effort to cope with the impact. You do continue to function at some level. Everyday tasks just take on that weight. I've had a few changes recently, some small, some large. And yes, I am continuing to function at some level. But it still takes a lot of effort to continue to do so. What's the source of all these changes? I've got 4 suggestions here, and I invite you to think, as we're going through these, the biggest change in your life right now, what's the source of that? Where's that coming from? Culture. We are becoming an increasingly litigious society. The public healthcare system, funded by general taxation, allegedly, over in the UK, taxpayers are paying £700 per birth for insurance against litigation. That is culture impacting not only the public healthcare system, but the taxpayer's pocket as well. Government. A government spokesman stood up and said, "We will reduce the administration burden of taxation for small businesses." Way! Big change for small business owners, getting that administrative burden reduced. It had another impact on freelance change management consultants like myself, which KPMG were required to engage by the government in order to say, well, if you're going to reduce the burden, you need to have a baseline, don't you? You need to know where you are now. And so I had the privilege of going out to several businesses and finding out exactly how they work. Absolutely fascinating. So a change for me, but an even bigger change for those business owners eventually. Technology. Those drones. How soon will it be before our skies are darkened by swarms of drones dropping delicacies all over the place? Or is that going to be a storm in a teacup? Business-driven change. Board of directors of one of my clients decided and realised that it would be more cost effective to have their production moved over to Greece. It is more cost effective. For all those people in that factory, that was a big change. Redundancy after lots of them had worked there for over 20 years. So there's a big impact from a business-driven change. How about you? Would one person like to share with us their source of a change that's going on right now? There's no obligation to do so. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kit.
Personal growth.
Personal growth is having a big impact on you in terms of change. And I'm sure you all have stories, and thank you for sharing that one. What about one closer to home? What type of change is that? It is a business-driven change. It's come from the board. In 2010, the board of directors of Toastmasters International charged world headquarters to refresh, to modernise and to focus. To refresh the education programme, to modernise the communication track and to renew focus on leadership. Let me introduce you to two fictitious fellow Toastmasters. On your left we have Rusty Chris. Imagine it's first thing in the morning, you are strolling down the street near a bakery and the smell of freshly baked bread fills the air. And Crusty Chris is born. Crusty Chris joins Toastmasters. Is malleable, isn't quite sure what to expect, grows to like pathways and the traditional programme, loves the way things are done round here. Pathways, at that time, is not on the horizon. When it is, Crusty Chris sees no compelling reason to change. Why should they? They have no reason to change for another 2 years. How about Flowery Francis? Flowery Francis. It's spring. Flowery Francis is a bud who bursts into bloom with a cornucopia of coloured petals, open to any new change that comes Francis's way. And we'll see what happens to the pair of them. Fast forward. So first of all, let's look at how do they feel in 2010. 2010, there's ripplings, there's announcements about the education programme being renewed. Crusty Chris and Flowery Francis are fairly neutral. There's not enough meat on the bones to know what it's all going to be about. Let's test the temperature, the colour of the room today. Think back to the first time you ever heard that the education programme was going to be changed. And please select one of the colours in front of you. If you were very sad, we'll have a red face. If you were neutral, it's yellow. And if you were very happy, it's blue. So if we could all now show the colour of your face. Whoa! We have a majority of yellow, a few blues and a couple of reds. Let's see how this progresses. Thank you.
Not everyone's got smiley faces and sad faces and cute faces because we ran out. Every single one has been given us. Can you share?
We have some more. We do have some more.
We've got even more.
I have even more.
I'll hand them out.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's fast forward to 2017. And in 2017, by now, the programme has been rolled out. And these type of words are flying around. We did have more.
I think I've given them all out.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
We're now starting to hear words like customise. You're going to have a customised programme that's going to meet your particular goals for Pathways. It's going to be flexible. You can have it online, you can have it in print. It's going to be resourced. You're going to have a massive new amount of resources. You're going to have videos, you're going to have online tutorials as well as printed matter. It's real world, it's going to have real world application. And finally, the effective evaluations both for giving and receiving. At this point, Crusty Chris, quite reasonably, is still neutral. Happy in the traditional programme for another couple of years, and why not? That's perfectly reasonable. Flowery Francis, blossoming opening to any new opportunity, is really excited now. Can't wait for the new programme to appear. Are we able to see the colour in the room from everybody? As to 2017, 13th of May 2017, what did we have? We have a mixture. We're now gone more blue than yellow. We have a few more reds as well. So we've now got majority of happy smiley faces in the room. We move forward to more recently, latter part of 2017 into the 20th of March 2018 for the rollout. We've had club visits, the rollouts happened, and we're now into the webinars that we have for the base camp managers to support the members in the clubs. Flowery Francis, predictably, is very happy, now able to get on there and sign on, choose a path, and Francis is away. Crusty Chris, still neutral, working quite happily in the traditional programme. Until Crusty Chris discovers that working in the traditional programme will not be transferable over to Pathways in 2 years' time. So unless Crusty Chris gets DTM in the next 2 years, the perspective is you've got to start again. So now, unhappy, are verging on annoying. For the final time, let's see what colour we have in the room. As of today, what is it we're feeling about Pathways? Let's see that colour now. Oh, we do still have a majority of blue and still slightly more reds, and we have one person who's smiling and, and red. Lovely, Steve. I'll find out what that's about later. Okay. So happy answer. So good things and bad things, I'm guessing. Lovely. All these change in our responses to change, which are varying through time and the information that we get. There are a number of theories out there, so we'll touch on theory, about why we react or how we react in certain situations. We're going to look at 3 different theories around response to perceived negative change and one about response to positive change. Kubler-Ross. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a Swiss psychiatrist who produced a book called On Death and Dying. How many of you are familiar with the books? So a number of people in the audience. Which was around people who are diagnosed terminally ill and the people that are supporting them. It was discovered that this is true of any negative change. It's not just about that particular grief cycle. Perlman and Takacs, that's Dottie Perlman and George Takacs, came along and added to Kubler-Ross's 5 stages. And we see here the main area that they expanded was in acceptance, putting 4 sub-stages into the when you accept the change. There is a tremendous difference between resignation, where it's, oh, well, a change is happening, I'm going to have to go along with it. That's acceptance at one level, but it's purely resignation. Compared to re-emergence. Oh my goodness, okay, I accept it, I get it, I'm going to invest time and energy in going towards this new change. So I can see why Perlman and Takacs added that particular part to acceptance. The final one we look at is Darrell Connor. Darrell Connor wrote my favourite change management book of all time, which is called Managing at the Speed of Change. And the title to me encapsulates what it's about. You cannot manage a change in an organisation or anywhere else faster than the people within it can assimilate that change. Otherwise, you're coming up against resistance, you're coming up against culture, and culture will win out. It talks not only about negative change, where he's expanded again on Kubler-Ross, but also about positive. Let's have a look first at negative response to change. Who in the audience has ever experienced redundancy, either personally, known someone who's been redundant, been in an organisation when it's happening? We're getting quite a lot of hands, yes. So just about everybody has had some sort of experience. I'll share one with you now, taking us through this response curve. Tuesday, January 1993. The head of our organisation came to where I was working and read out a statement, reading notes, which concluded with, "I regret to announce that the remainder of this rationalisation will be achieved by closing this entire unit here in East Yorkshire." Nothing. No thoughts, no sounds, no words. Immobilisation absolutely describes it. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. The rumour mill had not reached us. We had no idea this was happening. Immobilisation. I felt it. I'm sure other people have done too. When we recovered and caught our breath, it's there. This can't be right. This can't be happening. No, there's some mistake. Or there'll be consultations. It'll be sorted out. It'll be fine. Oh no, it won't. It is happening. And then comes the anger. Why? Why us? Why now? We've got the most experience. We've all gone the extra mile. Why are they doing this to us? Who's to blame for this? Very angry. A lot of angry people in that organisation at the time. The next one I'm slightly embarrassed about. This is bargaining. Why we thought this would work, I have no idea. But at the time, a group of us thought the rationalisation, as it was called, was to reduce costs by 20%. We came up seriously with the suggestion, with paperwork, to say 20%. Well, if everyone in the organisation goes on to a 4-day week, that's 20%, isn't it? It did make sense at the time, but it sounds kind of crazy as I'm telling you here now. But that was our bargaining. And when, not surprisingly, that was rejected. We ended up in the Depression. Anyone who ends up here, I hope you get through this stage really fast, because it is horrible. It's indescribable, for those who haven't been there. And I'll move on swiftly, because it is horrible. Testing. For me, testing was, I'm going to have to get some kind of other job. I need to start writing letters. Let me explain to any younger members of the audience. Writing letters used to be and into envelopes, and to the post office with your pile of envelopes, and waiting for either the thin one or the thick one to come back. Thin one means you've been rejected, thick one means fill in an application form. That's what I explored. 350 letters in 2.5 months, to be precise. I really went a bit hyperactive and got there in the end. And eventually you do end up at acceptance in one shape or form. I accept it today, 24 years later. I probably would not be here today with you had that not happened. So great things do happen out of things that appear initially negative. In an organisation, we have the board. This is what I call cascading change. You have decided there needs to be a change, and one of the directors is nominated to manage that change. They perhaps don't even agree with it. If you've been there in that position where you're told you've got to tell other people to do something that you don't actually agree with. So they're going through their curve. Got to the stage of anger. It's time to communicate. Communicates to 2 managers, who of course also have their own change curve. They get to a certain point in that when they then have to cascade again to their teams. And if you watch the ones here on the right, one of them disappears totally. Did you see that? They didn't want the change. They're not going to stay, and they have gone. And on the left, this manager is totally immobilised, and these people allegedly haven't heard about it, don't believe it. The rumour mill will get to them, but they haven't heard it from their manager. Krusty Chris starts off neutral, as we know, ends up being a little bit disgruntled about the DTM and not being able to transfer the communication track across. We want Krusty Chris to end up happy and embracing. If not, Krusty Chris will be the one that jumps off, the one that we lose. And that would be a shame because of the experience, the sharing that Krusty Chris can do within our organisation. Let's hope that doesn't happen. How about Flowery Francis? You will perhaps think that Flowery Francis, with all that enthusiasm and blooming, would be absolutely okay. Not necessarily true. Flowery Francis starts off with all this uninformed optimism about what's coming along. It's racing through the path chosen. Looks at level 5. Level 5 requires you to do a high-performance leadership project. Tick! Thinks Francis. I've done one of those. I organised this fantastic conference in Cork called Safe Haven. That's my HPL project. You can't carry it across. Now, not a happy Francis. At this point, not happy Francis can choose to check out, publicly or privately. Publicly, we will lose Flowery Francis from the organisation, which would be sad because that energy and enthusiasm is catching. Should Francis get past this, eventually Francis will have hopeful realism and into informed optimism and completion. How about you? I'm hoping everyone has a handout, which is an A4 fold, and inside the handout is a copy of both of those two curves. If you would like to just take a few seconds to mark on the positive change curve and the negative change curve where you are with each of those changes, and then re-look at it in 1, 3 and 6 months, that's cool. If you prefer to take it away to do so, that's fine. Let's just leave a few seconds for those who'd like to think about it now. Okay, could I ask you to take the rest of that thinking away with you? How do you cope? How do you cope with change, whether it is negative or positive? What is coping? Definition: investing conscious efforts to master, hopefully, minimise, if you're lucky, or tolerate, at worst, stress and conflict. Has anyone seen this? Again, this is from Darrell Connor and Alvin Toffler. Anyone seen this before? This is the going time from left to right. You're using energy on a change, whether it's positive or negative. Over time, the energy goes down. If you have more than one change coming in, however, change on change, you're getting more energy being used. And then sometimes you get a little tiny change on the top that is just too much. Straw that breaks the camel's back. You've had major change on major change, and then a tiny, tiny little thing just knocks you over the edge. I'll share something with you now. My family of Toastmasters. I have been going through some changes recently, and the big one for me was, 23:59 tomorrow, 2 months ago, my mum passed away very suddenly. And that immobilisation, that really hit. And I am still going through that curve. There's no time limit on it. You can't tell how you're going to get through it. And unfortunately, knowing all this stuff, training in all this stuff, does not protect me from that emotion. It doesn't. And that's horrendous. Really, you think, and you can't master it. It happens. And then there's a little tiny blip there. For me, that little tiny blip was, I was starting to try and sort stuff out from Mum, doing the right things. She had a couple of different bank accounts, so I rang the first bank. They told me you have to bring in a death certificate, you have to bring in various other bits of paperwork. Just pop into branch, we'll sort it out. So I popped into branch and was taken to a private room, went through all the process. They were very compassionate, very organised, and that was fine. So okay, that has worked. That's worked well. Okay, I'm still feeling strong. I'm going to the second bank. I'm taking the same stuff with me. Here we go. Up to the counter. I come because my mum's passed away and I know I need to register this. And the bank teller looked at me and said, "You can't do that. You've got to make an appointment." And I crumbled. I absolutely crumbled. Floods of tears because somebody said to me, "You've got to make an appointment." How ridiculous is that? That's what it is. It was just that little tiny thing. And the poor bank teller, can you imagine? All she'd said, "You've got to make an appointment." And this woman in front of her is just pouring with floods and floods of tears. The only thing I could think at the time is, this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. But it was pretty horrible, I have to say. So, Moose in their research says that we all have a preference for either thinking or doing strategies. And if you think for yourselves, do you like to, when you're hit with a problem, hit with a change, do you like to know the problem and fully understand it? Or do you like to go and do something, just do something? 350 letters in 2.5 months. Just do something, whether it's the right thing or not, or seek support. It's a thought for you. Do you like to do thinking? Do you like to do doing? Do we have time to just do one activity? 5 minutes. Okay, just 1 minute then with the person next to you. How do you cope? Do you have either thinking, doing strategies, and do you have a really special thing you do when you're feeling stressed that relieves that? If you could share with your partner, and we'll take one from the floor. Okay, if I could have your attention back, please. Okay. Lots of discussion there. May I ask just one person to share their coping strategy? First of all, if you like, I'll share mine, which is I like to get out in the countryside, in the fresh air. Those sights and sounds just really help a little bit. Anthony?
Well, last time it happened to me, I jumped up and down and swore violently.
Okay, so jumping up and down, I won't do the rest. It worked really well. Thank you very much indeed, Anthony. On the screen here are some suggestions about how to cope when you have these situations from the American Psychological Association. Some of those may resonate with you or give you some suggestions. Back to pathways. Are you a crusty Chris? Are you a flowery Francis? Probably not. These are extremes of characteristics that we see. My final question to you is, what character are you in this pathways journey that we're sharing? Whatever it is, you are not alone.